Okay, great. Thanks everybody for joining. What will be our last meeting before September. So we have everybody present currently except for Maureen, and Meredith from Orca has given her regrets. To start the, thank you, Cindy, for sending out the agenda. To start the session, we have a new member, Christine Ball. Welcome, Christine. Do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Sorry, I was muted because my dogs are barking.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks for including me in the committee. I'm very excited. I've applied for a few years, so I was really thrilled to get the call, and there's lots for me to learn here. So I think it'll probably be a fly on the wall for the first couple meetings, but hopefully I can contribute and be helpful.
Great. Well, welcome. Are you in Millbrook or in Cavan Monaghan?
I am at the corner of Zion and Carveth.
Oh, great. Great. Excellent. Okay. Well, welcome to the Trail Committee. Thank you very much for putting your name forward. It's a great group that we have. Obviously, the last year or so, we haven't done as much in terms of community involvement and our work days as usual because of the ongoing pandemic. But as you see when we go through these meetings, they do get quite detailed, and we like to talk about what currently needs to be done and where we'd like to move in the future. So it's as I said, it's a great group of people. So please be very vocal in the meetings, and hopefully as I said, this will be our last meeting until the end of September, because we always break for December, July, and August. But hopefully by September or shortly thereafter, we'll maybe be able to start meeting in person again. But welcome again. Thank you. Okay, number 3, approval of the agenda. Cindy, thank you very much for sending the agenda out. Does anybody have any changes that they'd like to see? No? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
John, seconded.
I can second that.
Dave, okay. If you could be vocal. I can't see everybody because of the Zoom. So if you would say, if you call your name or be vocal when you call out, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, all in favor of approval of the agenda?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, and we're going to move into a closed session. The minutes, again, thank you, Cindy, for sending out the minutes, and Melissa for sending out the minutes of the meeting held May 31st. Does anybody have any comments, concerns, omissions, additions to the minutes? No? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 31st?
I'll make.
So moved.
Oh, seconded, John Frizzle, seconded by John Follis. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So passed. Okay, number 7, delegation. We have a delegation this afternoon to our committee. So Cindy, I'll turn it over to you.
Through you, Chairman Jackson, Mr. Burwell has joined the group. Please proceed with your delegation. Can you hear us, Tom?
Hi. Not quite sure how to make this work. Can you hear me?
We can definitely hear you, yes.
Can you see?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So our delegation, first of all, just wants to recognize the importance and beauty of the trails that we have here, particularly for the physical and mental health, for the community that values them so highly. We're grateful members of that community. Having said that, we do want to address 2 issues in particular today. Firstly, how the Fairgrounds Trail opening and cutting was conducted, and then to talk about the proposed Ann Street opening. So first of all, the Fairgrounds Trail. I just want to give you a little quote from the Trail Master Plan here, section 10, number 14. Public participation should be incorporated into all decision-making related to the enhancement of trails and recreational opportunities in Cavan Monaghan Township. Democracy at the local level, absolutely in favor of that. Okay, I'm just going to take you through a little timeline here, just for the purposes of showing how this all sort of happened. And I'm going to refer to the Millbrook Valley Trails Advisory Committee as MVTAC, just because you guys have a very long name. So in June 22nd, 2020, MVTAC described doing a property search, and members walked the proposed rerouting of the trail, and they discussed bridging points. In September 2020, September 28th, the town and the MVT acknowledged receipt of resident concerns, and the town commits to keep the resident informed. The Deputy Mayor recommends MVTAC returns to this issue at a later date. And at the moment, there's no motion yet and no conversation yet, despite there being conversations on record with the proposed rerouting and the bridging points. Now, October 2020, the town says this meeting was not recorded. So all we have to go on are the minutes. The minutes read in this issue, trail rerouting due to beavers. This is deferred to the next meeting due to time restrictions, okay? So nothing's happened, it's deferred. We'll skip to the very next meeting, November 23rd, 2020. And Mr. D'Agostino and Mr. Frizzle talking about the trail that has already been cut, okay? In December, the delegates wrote to the Deputy Mayor indicating that there had been a complete lack of any public participation at this point, despite making ourselves known and despite reassurances that we would be kept informed. So the answer to this came on January the 6th, 2021, in an email from the Deputy Mayor, in which he advises that in regards to your, this is a quote, in regards to your questions about public consultation, this aspect of the Trails Master Plan is fulfilled due to the public's ability to access the MVT meetings and the minutes of those meetings as well. I've also provided oral updates about this beaver issue to the council a number of times in my verbal committee report. And of course, there's also the input that's provided by the community volunteers that are appointed to the MVT committee. So you'll notice here that there's no indication that abutting residents were considered relevant. There's no mention of the delegates here today who had asked to participate and had been reassured that they could. There's no outreach at all to the public at large. Let's consider what the Deputy Mayor did say. He mentions the ability to access the meetings, but many of these are not available on YouTube. He mentions minutes, and I'm now going to read to you the minutes from November 2020, okay? This is the same month that Mr. D'Agostino reports that the trail has been cut by himself and Mr. Frizzle. 8.1, trail rerouting due to beavers. So this is the same one in November. Mr. D'Agostino spoke the possibilities of rerouting the trail due to beavers. And the committee discussed permits that may be required by Orca. Clearly, these minutes misrepresent the actual content of that November meeting. Of course, the undercurrent here is cutting the public out of the process. The delegates were personally cut out, the trail just appeared. The public could not access accurate information about what had been happening. Now we learn that an MVT-AC subcommittee proposes to change the public participation clause. Why is MVT-AC so afraid of simply allowing the public their rights? This has damaged the public trust placed in MVT-AC. Mr. Huntley, our councillor, has indicated that we are able to see any and all studies and permits to do with the rerouting of the trail away from the south side to the north side of Baxter Creek, around the bridge location, and the Fairgrounds Trail studies. Please note that in November, the minutes say that Orca has not yet been consulted, but in the video, the trail is already cut. Okay. I'd like to now move on to the second item that we have, is about the proposed Ann Street Trail entrance. So some of our concerns are parking. There's likely to be no enforcement or very little enforcement, even if there's no parking signs here. Traffic. These are hazard lands that you'll be using. There's signs of instability, slipping and slumping. It's a hydrogeologically sensitive land. And we're worried about erosion. A lack of turning space. It means our driveways will be forcibly and continually used for turning. There's no other place to turn. This is not the same trail as was put in the 90s when these trails were begun. Back then it was a community project. And I'm just going to quote from you from the Millbrook Times about how these trails were first made. This is by Karen Graham. Residents with property adjacent to the proposed route were contacted in person in 1999. Support from them was universal, with a caveat that the trail be restricted to passive use with no motorized vehicle traffic allowed. Public input was sought through a series of public meetings and surveys. I don't believe there's much precedent for this. In common with members of the community, we bought our house here for peace, quiet, and privacy. We would like to present a letter that we have from our neighbor here at 45 Ann Street, which I believe is in the possession of the township, which is against this proposal. We'd also like to present a local community petition, which is also against this proposal. The residents here, all of them were in support of what we had to say, that there should be no Ann Street opening, apart from one person we spoke to. So just to circle back again, the major issues here, with reference to the Fairgrounds Trail in October, it was deferred. In November, it had already been cut. The minutes are inaccurate, and the public has been kept in the dark. We were kept in the dark, despite reassurances we were not included in the process. I'd like to draw your attention again to that January the 6th email, and to the fact that the subcommittee of the of yours is currently looking at altering the public participation clause in the Trails Master Plan. That's all for today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your delegation, Mr. Barwell. Any comment from the township?
It did mention that there were questions at the end. I wasn't sure. It didn't say whether those were questions from me or questions from you. I'm not sure what that means. I do have some questions if you're able to answer them.
Ms. Page, do you want to outline the process here?
Definitely. So as indicated, you're right. There is a 15-minute process for delegations, 10 minutes for presentation, 5 minutes for questions and answers. So if the committee has any questions, they're able to ask it or just receive the delegation. As well, you're able to ask any questions you'd like, Mr. Barwell. Having said that, we may not be able to answer them all on the fly, so please be respectful of that.
Sure.
Is there any questions from the committee? Any questions from the township? Okay, turn it over to you again, Mr. Barwell.
Okay, so question for you, Mr. Jackson. What is the precedent for opening a trailhead so close to residential properties?
Take that in consideration. Thank you.
To Mr. D'Agostino and Mr. Frizzle. Actually, I think I've decided to do them. Mr. Jackson, again, why, if the land directly south of Ann Street floods and is an old refuse dump, did the MVTAC decide to bridge at this point rather than to the west 50 meters where there's no flooding and no refuse?
Okay. I've taken note of that, Mr. Barwell. Can I ask, I do have a question. When you're referring to the Millbrook AC, can you define what you mean by that?
Yeah, I did define that earlier on, the Millbrook Valley Trails Advisory Committee.
Advisory Committee. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Did you have an answer to that one?
Not at this time, no.
Yes, again to Mr. Jackson, the MVT-AC minutes indicate that Orca had not done their study in November 2020, yet the trail we know had been cut already. Can you explain this?
I'd have to review the notes, Mr. Barwell, but I believe my initial answer to that would be that that's in direct relation to the bridge crossing and not the trail itself. But I'd have to get back to you with confirmation on that.
Okay. And then just a final comment, really, to everyone there. We hope that the plan to cut a trailhead from Ann Street is abandoned. If it's not, we do ask that the MVT-AC defer any cutting whatsoever, including for refuse, so that we can have the opportunity to further gauge public opinion on this matter.
Okay. Any further questions?
No, that's everything from us. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your delegation.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Page?
For you, Chairman Jackson, we need a mover and a seconder to receive the delegation.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I have a mover to accept the delegation? Maureen, seconded by
John Follis.
Mr. Falls. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, delegation accepted. Motion carried. Okay, are we ready to move on? Ms. Page?
Yes, through you, Chairman Jackson, you're on to financial reports from ourselves.
Great, thank you very much. 8.1 financial report. Melissa.
Melissa, I think Melissa's muted through Chairman Jackson.
Yeah,
I'm here now. So since last month's meeting, there's been two purchases through the materials and supplies account. One was Merit Home Hardware at $218.63. And the other was Otonabee Region Conservation tree seedlings for $212.42, a total of $431.05. Your budget remaining is $3,767.03. Do you have any questions on that at all?
Anybody have any questions?
No? Okay. So one other thing in regards to budget and payment and stuff like that, we thought that we would try to make it easier, especially on the committee members, the fact that you're volunteers and such. So instead of having, we're going to try to pull away from committee members making payments them out of their own pockets and then being reimbursed, if that's okay with everybody. So what we're looking at doing is that would be the last point of payment if there was absolutely no other way to make a payment and the committee member needed the supplies ASAP. Prior to that, what we want to try to start doing is where we either have you use stores where we have accounts, so like Home Hardware and stuff like that. And we might work on these logistics a bit more with Yvette and then meet with you, Robert, just to go over those logistics. And then the other thing would be to ensure that whoever's making the purchase maybe works ahead of time through Chris or myself to make sure that we're able to, whether we do it through our payables or what have you, just to make the process a little bit easier for everybody. And then there's no reimbursements needed or concerns on your guys' end. Is everybody okay with that?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, so that's everything for the budget part of things.
Okay, Excellent. Any questions? Okay, thank you. So Meredith.
Robert, can I ask a question? Sorry, it's Yvette.
Yep.
Sorry, I know you can't see everyone. Just to support what Melissa's trying to do is, what we're trying to do is make it easier. I know that you may be buying product or supplies over the summer. If you direct it through Melissa directly, not Chris, but Melissa, then she'll assign a GL or let you know where you could potentially, where we have an account and you could get that information. We're not trying to give you additional work, but we are trying to make it a little bit easier for you and not hold you up. By all means, if you need to go ahead and purchase something, we're not saying not to or anything. We're just trying to make it easier so it's not money out of your original, like out of your pocket directly.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Okay, so Meredith had said she wouldn't be able to join tonight. Cindy, did she give you any update?
She did. She just spoke about the meeting that Melissa from the township, as well as Tammy from the county, and Alyssa from Orca and Ganaraska Conservation. They met last week to talk about the status and the location of the mapping with that the Fleming students had completed with Millbrook, and the next steps that are required, but we're not quite there yet, she said. And she also wanted the committee to know that the tripping hazards from the mesh on the berm were removed from by Orca staff on June 2nd.
Excellent. Any questions?
Melissa may have more to add when we get to that item on the actual agenda for GIS MVT mapping, but I think that's all from there.
Okay, great. Any questions on the org update? Okay, 8.3 trail report. Alex and John Follis, take it away.
Alex there or just me?
I'm here.
Oh, do you want me to start and you can follow up, or do you want to start?
Well, I mean, I can kick us off if you want. You know, John and I met on Monday night and went for a lovely leisurely social distance walk, starting from Glamorgan, working our way all the way over to Dyell. Removing a couple of routes and whatnot along the way. Then the main thing we observed was some pretty catastrophic caterpillar damage from the gypsy moth caterpillars. And other than that, the trail was a really enjoyable walk. Then we kind of split off. I know John has walked some other sections of the trail, so I guess I can hand it off to John to detail some of the other sections that he walked independently.
Thanks. So I sent an email to Cindy and tried to write what I wrote, just referencing things that might be applicable to the next work day. And basically for Gani Transit DL Meadow Trail from Railbed to Elgar, there are really no issues. Everything's been nicely dried up, and the Grand Trunk Railbed, the reminder would be that we do need to deal with the gully that runs down from the railbed around the bridge there. So that I would think might be given priority. Just a note to thank Rosemary Bushell and Kathy McCauley for drawing our attention to a tree that was down on the Grand Trunk pathway. And other than that, they didn't see anything to report on the ministry property. The Meds Mountain Loop, I'd like to say thanks and congratulations to whoever got the bike signage up. I think that's going to discourage people from biking in the areas where they're not supposed to be. And again, I think the comments that I noted about Baxter Creek Trail have been made before, but the ones that I draw attention to is the downslope from the mountain toward Baxter Creek at just before you get to the T-shaped boardwalk. Those routes are exposed and they'll either require mulch or gravel. Maps and containers are missing on the trails, like the mountain trail and the Baxter Creek Trail. The containers were missing, so if we could put some of them up, I think it would be appreciated. walking south along the pond and creek, the bridge that is part of the long boardwalk after you cross the major bridge is sagging on one side, needs leveling, but I think that's been mentioned before. Baxter Creek from the fairgrounds to Fourth Line, again, we need map holders. We didn't walk the closed section. And then Theater Trail, I think there's work needed on it on the boardwalk if it's going to be kept open this year. It appears a horse walked through it when the ground was quite wet and has done some damage there. But and then Station Trail, somebody appears to have dumped a wheelbarrow or two worth of dirt on the east side of the trail near McGuire. So I guess we could spread that in between some of the railroad ties if we had time to do that. And I guess I'd make, if this is the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, thinking about some of the changes that have been made to the lockdown, it appears that after the 30th, we could have groups on the trail together. From my standpoint, I'm lucky I've got the 2 shots now, and after the 8th of July, I'll have covered my 2 weeks there. So I'd be quite happy to work with other people who have their 2 shots. So if we could, I don't know whether we want to try to do a whole workday, but if as the chair, you wanted to make a list of some of these actions that we could do in groups of 2 or 3, we could maybe sign up for them. So that's my report.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to talk about that. I think we need obviously guidance from township on that. But I agree. I think there's a number of us that have received a couple of shots and we'll be probably good to go the 1st or 2nd week of July. Just a note on the Station Trail, the wheelbarrow load of dirt. That's being done by Craig, former MVT member, under sort of my direction. So that's probably has been spread since you.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Alex, anything to add?
No, just that the trails are in, that we walked there are in really good shape. It was just really nice hiking. I don't normally do a lot of summer hiking because of I'm usually traveling or out and about and just not usually a big fan of summer hiking. But oh, it was great. We really enjoyed the hike we went on there, and the trails are in good shape and seem pretty popular from what I'm hearing from other people as well.
Okay, great. So on Mr. Follis's recommendation, Matthew, Yvette, Cindy, Melissa, if we were to get smaller groups together mid-July to tackle some of these issues that have gone undone for quite some time because of COVID, what would the township think of that?
Do you want to, Rob, do you want to circle back on that in 9.3 and just go, because I imagine that's going to take up the lion's share of our conversation moving forward.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay, then any questions for Alex or John on the trail report?
I have a question through you, Rob. It's John Frizzle. I just wondered if you guys were walking down the rail bed that comes up from Zion Line, if you had noticed the erosion that seems to be getting worse and worse there. And I don't know if that's something that the township could give us a hand with by opening that gate and getting some fill in there, kind of the same way they did on Station Trail, because right above the nice railway tunnel there, popular area to stop on the trail on the upper side through the rail bed, the old rail bed, it seems to be eroding quite quickly, and there's a section in there.
Yeah, so I think that's again something we can cover in 9.3. I've been walking that quite a bit lately as well, and the charge for home hardware that Melissa spoke to earlier was actually for some 6x6s and some rebar that I purchased to hammer in there, and then to bring, with the idea of bringing in the fill once that area was sort of secured with the 6x6s and rebar. Again, it's not something I could sort of do on my own, so But I think, we've certainly got the materials, and we've got certainly lots of gravel, et cetera, fill at the works yard. So I think, again, if we tackle that in 9.3, just how, when, and who will be able to do that
on a work day. And just, hats off to the township. I know I can't say it enough, but they've been doing an excellent job helping us out with some maintenance. The weed whacking has been incredible. We haven't really even had to ask too much for it, but there is one section, if Chris is getting to it with the crew of it, it's just the section again that comes down from the M&R ponds and then goes to that really popular railway tunnel. Last time I was down there, I don't know if you can speak to it. You might have been down there more recent than I have, Dave, but it was starting to get overgrown around that bench down there.
It still is.
Okay, and there was one other section, and I think we formally, it's formally on the trail map, and it was a trail that was overgrown at one time, but it was refurbished. It's kind of like a little Baxter Creek side loop. And that has not been weed whacked this year. And it's somewhere that you kind of have to know where it is. Maybe if you're not looking for it, you just go down the main trail. And I wondered if that's something that we wanted to have next time. It's not urgent, but next time the township is out there, to have a look at, using the weed whacker in that area. If they're not sure where it is, Yvette, I can always send a picture to Chris or something, if that's helpful.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Yvette. Go
No,
ahead.
that's okay, John, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think on Maureen's last report, she mentioned that we maybe should have signs where that goes off, because it, like we did reopen it after it disappeared. I don't know, I guess that must be a couple of summers ago, but we never got signage up to indicate that it existed. And so if we put the signs up there, probably more people would walk through and tramp it down, and probably staff don't even know it's one of our trails. It's because they just assume people are fishing there. So I don't know whether we need to. Does it have a formal name already?
I think if we were going to do that, we would have wanted to do it before we made the maps.
Oh.
But even if we just named it Baxter Creek Side Loop or something like that, and put up our regular little signs with that on it, with the same color as the Baxter Creek Trail, that would probably be sufficient, just so that people know that it's formal. It's part of our formal trail, and there is a bench back there about where the weed whacking needs doing. There's a bench there, so it is formal and worthy of attention. So it's also very pretty back there.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, to John, if you send me an email just with a little bit of information on where you think it is marked out, or a photo or something, just because sometimes not Chris, or definitely not myself, go out there. It just might help let the township staff know exactly where you're looking for and where you need weed whacking, because we're happy to help.
Absolutely, I can do that right away.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Okay. And now Cindy, you had on here update trail report list. What do we need to do with that item?
My thought was, I'll bring the list up quickly here. Did I attach the list? 8.3.1. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Named differently. So next, the September meeting is Alex and David again. So I didn't know if we wanted to integrate Christine maybe to give her an opportunity. And I also noticed that in November, Craig is on here. So I just thought it'd be an opportunity to just quickly update this. And I'll redistribute it to the team.
Okay. David, how do you feel about working with Christine, or sort of showing her the ropes on how to do a trail report in September?
So yeah, I'd totally be happy to do that. Usually I'm on my bike, and my version of the trail report happens a little faster. So I'm not sure what September looks like with kids, but if maybe if someone else with a little bit more time was able to do that, I'd appreciate it. And otherwise, in a pinch, I could.
Okay.
What if potentially Hillary and Hillary steps up for September and then Maureen and Christine do October? Just a suggestion.
Does that work for you, Hillary and Maureen?
Yes.
Yep, that works for me.
Mhm.
Okay, does that work for you, Christine? Yeah, okay, I see you nodding. You're on mute, but I see you nodding, great. Okay, and then, so that's only leaves November to replace Craig. I'm happy to do it. Is there anybody else that wants to do it in November? John?
I'm happy to help out in November for sure.
You're already doing it in November.
Oh,
Mr.
sorry.
No, it's okay.
There you
You're
go.
already in. So thank you for your super volunteerism.
Yeah. There I am.
John Wallace?
I was going to say, given the extra kilometerage that we've added to the trails, in fairness to Christine, maybe we should, like, I'd like to try to volunteer. Maybe I can help out a bit in September. And she probably wouldn't. Normally we split the trails up, so she's not going to get over them all in 1 month, I wouldn't think, unless Maureen is more dedicated. Oh, wait a minute, who's doing September? David.
So, yeah.
Anyway,
David and Hillary are doing it in September.
Yeah.
And Christine and Maureen are doing it in October.
But perhaps we could volunteer to take Christine out a bit in September, if she cares to.
Christine,
For
you
you,
got your hand
Chairman
up?
Jackson. I was just going to say Christine has her hand up. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Christine, you got your hand up?
I just wanted to let you know that I am right at the Zion entrance here at the trail, the railroad track. So I actually walk that whole route through all of those trails 3 to 4 times a week. So if someone gives me what I need to be looking for, that I can guarantee I will do on a very regular basis.
Okay, great. All right, so John, do you want to maybe work with Christine and Maureen in October then, and just sort of coordinate?
Sure, that'll be fine. I really like the long trail, but maybe you've already done the trail across the Ganaraska Transit and those ones. Have you already done it, or Christine?
I'm not sure that I've done that. I'll have to look at the map again because I don't really pay attention to the names of the longer ones.
Right. But anyway, if there are any that you're not familiar with, maybe that'd be better. If there's any you're not familiar with, probably you've walked them all at some point anyway, and it was not a friendly assumption on my part. So I apologize for that if that was unfair. Doing the Gani Transit in the winter time is a bit of a challenge because in the summer it's easy to follow the trail, but in the winter it can be a little bit doubtful where it goes from time to time. So wouldn't want to send you out there in December if you've never done it before.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying, Christine, if you have any issues or questions at all, just contact any one of us and we'll be more than glad to help out.
Thank you.
And Christine, I'd be very willing to I'm very happy to go for a walk with you along Gani Transit at some point during the summer. It's just gorgeous out there. So it's a nice part of the trail to get to know in the summer.
Thank you.
Okay, so going back to the November meeting, November 22nd, I'm happy to do the trail report with John Frizzle, unless anybody else is really dying to do it. No? Okay. Do you want to put me down for that then, Cindy?
Yep, absolutely, Chairman Jackson. Just a motion just to amend that, and then I'll circulate it to everybody concluding the meeting.
Can I have a motion to amend the trail reports as outlined here?
So moved.
Seconded by
I'll second Hillary.
Hillary. All in favor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to general business. 9.1, proposed new connection trail, Tower Hill North Development draft letter. So if I remember right, I wrote up a letter and presented it to Matthew in the township, and I guess we're reviewing that. Is that right? Is my memory correct there, Matthew?
Sorry, I believe, can you hear me, Rob?
Yep.
My phone keeps crashing with this stuff, so apologies. Can you ask that question to me again?
So 9.1, the proposed new connection trail for the Tower Hill North development. I sent you a letter, and we're going to review it now. Is that correct?
That's an excellent question, Rob. I don't know if I've reviewed that letter yet, so I'll take that.
Cindy, is that correct? I had sent I'm just looking back through my email. I'd sent a letter a few weeks ago.
So the only letter that I recall receiving from you was the one that was regarding the potential feasibility study that's undergoing at the Millbrook Arena. I don't recall seeing one regarding the proposed trail. I apologize if you sent it to me.
I just sent it to Matthew. Yeah, Matthew, I sent it to you on June 2nd.
Oh, that's my fault, Rob. I probably just missed it here. I will review it and get back with comments, and we can maybe share it around via email. I apologize about that.
You want me to bring it up right now?
If you can, yeah, that's great.
Okay. Yeah, I sent it to you, June 2nd in the morning. Anyway, let me share my screen here. Okay, can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Give you a minute to read it.
So Rob, one comment I have, if I can interject.
Yep.
So I would suggest that 90% of the content is great. One of the things that I wonder if we could just advocate or change some of the language on is with regards to the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph. As such, we believe it is the utmost importance that an established connection. I think one of the things that we'd like to do, or maybe just change a bit of the language structure there, is that we fully support the proposed inclusion of a trail in the Tower Hill North subdivision, right? Like I think we can just be a little maybe softer and thankful and supportive in some of that language, just like we know one's being proposed and one's being considered, and you have our full support in pursuing and establishing such a trail, and we'd be happy to provide any sort of assistance, direction, or any assistance in that effort or establishment of that trail whatsoever, and we appreciate the consideration. Something to that effect, you know what I mean? Because it is being considered by them. It has been proposed, and I think there's some hurdles that they're trying to go through in order for it to actually be established. And I think a letter of just saying that we support you in doing that, and we appreciate that consideration of all trail network in subdivision to unite and connect the community in a passive recreation nature. I think that's sort of where we want to go, or where we could go with that sentence, but I will defer to your company on that.
Okay, well, just to clarify though, do we want both, don't we? We want a linkage and support the internal trail in the new development?
That's a fair question. I didn't realize there was some debate about whether there would be linkage and how it's been proposed in the public meetings about the trail. Was there something or some nuance as to how it was laid out there that we might want to make a more direct suggestion to? That's new.
Sorry, I was just thinking signage, right? Because I mean, they're going to have to cross Fallis, right?
Yeah, I see what you from sign.
And then go down to, apologies, I don't know the names of the new streets down there, but go and basically connect up where the water storm management pond is, and then down to Station Trail, right?
Yeah. Well, we could make a comment then to maybe be more explicit that we would be helpful to work with them and support and, integrating this trail through signage with our own network, right? Because they might not understand that whole nuance of our own network or existing network. I didn't understand it from a signage standpoint when I read it, so.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
May I make a suggestion that you and Matt just have a conversation about this and bring the final version back to the next meeting, because like we can't really comment on something that's in the air.
Yeah, my understanding is, and the reason I got it out to you June 2nd, Matt, was because this was of sort of a timing importance, right?
Yeah, why don't we do this, Rob, and I'll take full station back over some edits and then maybe share it via email and get people sign off there rather than wait till September. And I apologize to the committee for that. That's my fault.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, why don't we do that, Matt? I've still got access to internet up here over the next couple of weeks, so yeah, just do that. And
I'll make some propose some edits tonight, Rob, and you'll have that back and you can disseminate it and get some feedback and go from there.
Great. Everybody good with that?
I am.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the only concern I have is that you know, if you're sending out a letter on behalf of the committee, you should have a motion to support that letter. So
can we do that via email once the final draft is written?
No.
Has COVID changed the regulations on that? So
No. No, it's still advancing business in closed session if we do it by email. So ultimately, what if the committee just takes a second to review the intent of the letter? And if there's any points other than what Matthew's saying that the committee supports.
What I would say, yeah.
And then we pass the motion to say those were the amendments, and that's what Chairman Jackson and Matthew can, finalize or whatever. But I think, I really think we need to take a second and finish it here if it needs to be. I don't know what the timelines are. Do you, Ms. Hurley, know what the timelines are for when this needs to be submitted?
Well, if it's under the commenting process, then they should submit them. Through this, I think there'll be another 30 days. So I'm worried that September will be too late.
Yeah. Okay.
So let me work on some language here, Rob. Just give me 2 seconds here. I'll write it out and then I'll propose it, and then we can see it. If anyone maybe ask the committee. So based on what I've expressed or communicated, does anyone have any issues with that content? And then I'll crystallize it into that paragraph now.
I'm very happy to say that we support and are glad of their plan to incorporate a trail, to include a trail in their development. But I do want to make sure that we emphasize, we can't use this word, but contiguity. Like, if a trail is going to be properly used for kids in particular, and there are lots of kids out there on the trails on their own, I mean, middle schoolers and younger now on the trails on their own, and we like that. So safe continuity has to be provided. The kids are loving the natural aspect of our trails, and their parents feel fabulous about letting them have that freedom. So we need Tower Hill to understand not just the safety aspect and the contiguity aspect, but there's a heritage aspect to our trails, and there's a cultural aspect to our trails that's very valued, and we don't want to get away from that too much.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, what you're seeking is, I think, about supporting a trail network system here that interlinks with the existing. That's basically all you're doing, because the trail, if it gets approved, because there's some questions pertaining to that, but if it gets approved and if there's a trail there, the trail becomes the township trail. It will not be a Tower Hill trail, and the township will be responsible for developing that trail. So just for clarification, you're not seeking the aspects, I think, and Maureen gives a good point of what that trail is going to look like, or the intent of that trail, but it's whether you support a trail system that connects to an already existing trail system or connects to the community-wide trail system that we have here. But the actual development or what that trail will look like will be the responsibility of the township.
So
And thus you as a committee would be involved in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the corridor that they give us has to be, you know, there are certain corridors that don't lend themselves.
So it's already been designed, Maureen.
Mhm.
Corridor is already there. It's only in the one location. It can only be in the one location. So that's what you're supporting that trail. So it's not an option to redevelop it in a different location.
Okay.
Okay, just for clarification on that, that's all, because you had to go for approvals, right? From Orca, it's a realignment. It's a new, it's going to be a new feature that's going to be developed there.
Does that provide some clarity?
Mm-hmm.
I hope that helps a little.
So I wrote something out quickly, Rob, but do you want, is there any, I can't see anyone, so if there's other comments, I can hold off.
No, go ahead. Why don't you just verbalize it?
Okay, I'll try to speak slowly. It's not my specialty. So just rather than, so as such, we, the Milford Valley Trails Committee, are very supportive and thankful for your consideration to include the proposed trail in the Tower Hill North subdivision, period. We as a committee would welcome the opportunity to work with you and to integrate this trail into our existing network of trails in the township, should the opportunity or need arise.
I would leave out should the opportunity or need arise. I would just say period. That's,
as you mentioned, that's, you're not going to be able to do it prior to. Right, it's more about Milford Valley Trails in the township once we take ownership of it, as to how we're going to integrate it all.
right.
Because it's certain things that fiscally the developer is responsible for and can provide. So it's really going to be more between the township and Milford Valley Trails once it's already established. But so what I'm trying to explain is that they're having difficulties even getting what they've proposed. So it's not like it's a done deal. Like they're having to advocate and, you know, take time and money to even further the consideration of this at this point. And it's so that's why I think it would be worthwhile to say that we support this, because I think that letter may speak to some of the organizations that are being very critical and obstructionist to the actual establishment of the trail at all.
Mr. Chairman, is it fair to ask who's being obstructionist?
I'm not involved, John, but I would hate to, it's an evolving process, so I'm not up to date on it as of now, but I just know that there are a number of constraints and policies that I know the township has some questions as to why they're seemingly being pursued for what is actually being sort of presented. And we're working through that process, as I'm sure you can appreciate. Yvette, is that as political as I can be? You might do better than I do.
Through Mr. Chairman, to the committee. I think the issues are, there's been some questions publicly raised at the public meeting pertaining to the proposed trail, which is actually a realignment. It's a trail system that's next to a realignment of a tributary. And the question is whether or not we've had comments that have concerns of a trail system potentially, or direction on what a trail would look like next to a realignment of a tributary. So there was some questions raised during that public process during that. So I think if your committee is supportive, I think what you're trying to do is just state that your committee is supportive of having a trail system in the new developments. It's clearly identified where that trail system is, and that your support of that trail and the linkages to the existing trail network that you have within your community. So,
and through you, Mr. Chair, and then following up on that, the way that trail is, the rules for that trail will be defined by the township as opposed to the developer. Am I hearing you right on that one?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I believe so, John. I think all we've been asking, all we need right now is support for a trail system. That's what we're looking for. The actual how that trail's developed will come back to council, and I would assume it would come back to the committee for comment as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Yvette.
Welcome.
Okay, so can I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll support that we send the letter.
Can I get a second?
Mhm. I'll support that we send the letter as well, although I have to say privately to this meeting, even though it's being videotaped, I have real reservation about realigning tributaries in general. Natural waterways are much healthier than any artificial realignment and provide much more interesting trails and healthier environmental results for everybody. But I think we're a little bit too far along in the process now to influence that. So,
Maureen, if you can go out in that field and find the tributary that's being realigned, you're in the right. You should be in the, one of those gold digging goes instead. Or
well, yeah, it's hard in a drought year to find a lot of things. Yeah,
that's all. Anyways, the realignment has been sort of done and approved, and it's just now it's seeming that, if you look at the trail network we have, it seems kind of bizarre that there would be concerns about the proximity with the buffers that exist, for a trail to be of the nature that it is. But that's really the one of the sticking points that's been an issue, is there's going to be a buffer area so far, and so I'm sure that those can be accommodated and it can work well for all parties involved. I think there's just a bit of stickiness that this could, I think as a committee, all we really need to focus on is we would prefer the trail to exist or not exist, because without it, the subdivision is just as a subdivision, and there's really not much way of any sort of passive mobility incorporated in, other than, for the school or the potential school lands accommodation and the sidewalk infrastructure there, right? So I think it's going to be an important part of having a passive connection into the village rather than having to rely on automobile traffic and congestion, etc. So that's really.
Okay, so back to the motion. We have a seconder. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
I will provide those updated language, Cindy, to I can edit the letter and send it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda, GIS MVT mapping. Melissa.
Thank you. So we're getting closer with every meeting. Right now, as Meredith kind of explained, I met with Meredith and Alyssa. Alyssa works with Meredith and Tammy to gather more background. So what the next steps basically are in regards to the committee is it's going to be stored on the server with the county. What we need from the group is maybe a side group of people that can help with the deliverables. So basically, for her to be able to tell us, how we're going to do this, she needs someone that will be able to, who has experience with this, just to make sure that all the maps are updated, the kind of language that you'll want in a story map, what kinds of things you're looking for. She said that when it was created in the original version, and there are newer options now that would make it look better, what we put online. So I don't know if there is somebody or a couple of people who would be interested in helping with that.
I would be.
Okay. So Robert, I'm thinking so I have another meeting booked with myself and Yvette and Tammy tomorrow to discuss things like the fees and stuff. I think we'll have that one maybe to start. And then what we'll do is we'll bring you into the next one with Tammy. And I'll have some maybe questions outlined as to what we're going to be looking for from you before the meeting, prior to the meeting, so you can collect your thoughts about it.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. That's really everything. There is one other thing I don't, Cindy, can I just mention something about the email that I had sent out to the group?
Cindy?
What is it regarding? Can we put it under any of the general business items? Because in theory, we've done really great on keeping the group focused on the agenda items that are on it. So can we incorporate it somehow in your 9.2?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of them was in regards to working with the Crown Lands, with the MNRF. David agreed to take on with me the project of creating a list of items that are ours, but David may need some assistance with that.
To cut you off, sorry, Melissa. Is this not the MNRF agreement that's under the work plan?
Yes.
Okay, we can just wait then till 9.3.
Okay.
Because we're going to do updates on all of those items.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Any questions on that from Melissa? Okay, so let's move on to 9.3 work plan. So Cindy, did you have, excuse me, did you have something you wanted to say about this up front?
Not necessarily, but I think that the intent of this plan moving forward, Melissa is going to be our keeper of it. When we have these meetings and these updates, so for example, I don't know if you want to start on the MNRF agreement, but it would be the investigating status of the project. So then she would just provide her update there on whatever that update's going to be. So this is going to be your living document that's going to tell you where each of your progress and your status is on each of your items that are currently identified on here.
Okay.
I would just start, if I was you guys, on the top item, talk about it. If there's no updates, there's no updates. That was a reflection, and then move on to your next item.
Okay. For the first one, I have no updates. I will endeavor to meet over the summer.
Okay. North Trail expansion. No updates. We're still sort of waiting to see what happens with the master plan and the province as a whole. So can we move on to workday? Cindy, can we move on to workday? Yeah, okay. Okay, so we've got a number of to-dos as outlined by John and Alex earlier today, and our previous trail reports over the last few months. I will attempt to put together a list and distribute that and prioritize them. But as per my previous question, if groups of 2 or 3 of us, or maybe a few more, were to get together to tackle these over the summer as weather permits, what would be the township's thoughts on that?
For you, Mr. Chairman, are you just asking, do you need assistance from us, or I'm sorry, I'm not clear exactly what you're asking from the township?
Yeah, it was more under the guise of the pandemic and
COVID. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, as long as you're following the protocols. I mean, obviously we go into step 2 on the 30th, and the information is clearly outlined of, you know, outside groups and etc. If you can maintain social distancing, you maintain social distancing. If you can't, you have to wear, you know, the proper PPE equipment, that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't have any issues. As long as you're, following the regs, we're good.
Okay. The other issue we have is lumber. Not all of these are going to require the cedar, of course, but I think we've got a couple dozen pieces left. And I've not received an update on the cutting from Hope Mill, but they are cutting. So maybe I'll get in touch with them later this week and see if we might be able to pick some more up, maybe before the end of or the middle of July. I think they were hoping to have our order, which is a larger order than other years, because we haven't had it in two years. They were hoping to have it done by the end of August, but maybe we can get a bit of an interim pickup. And if so, I would work with Cindy and Yvette and Chris on that in order to get the township's assistance and using their trailer. So going back to the task at hand, though, if I put together a list of what needs to be done and distribute that, and then we can work via email to set up small groups to be able to go out and tackle that, is that a good option for everybody?
It's me.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Okay. So we don't need a motion for that. Correct, Cindy? You can just update that.
That's
Okay.
correct. Yep.
So Melissa, do you want to talk about the MNRF agreement as per your email?
So we're in the process of updating the agreement. It's been back and forth with myself and Pat. And now, as I put out to the group that for that agreement, we need an actual list conducted of things that we have built or are responsible for within the trail system. So David has agreed to help with that. I don't know if someone else wants to help him as well. I'm going to create the initial Excel spreadsheet that will list all of the trails and then the things that we're looking for. So like bridges, culverts, signs, structures. If there's anything else I might have missed, once I do the Excel spreadsheet, I will send it to the group because there may be things that I just don't know of that should be added. And then once we all agree that the list is complete, then maybe everybody could help with David and populating that list so that we can get that as an appendice for the agreement.
Okay, that works for me. Rest of the committee agrees?
Agree.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Cindy, you can update that. And then Melissa, you've already updated us on the GIS mapping. Cindy, you're okay with that for that status?
Yes, collaboratively, Melissa and I will get it.
I just
Okay.
have just one question about the GIS mapping, because one of the things that I was asked by Tammy was the Grand Trunk pathway. Was it known previously as the Historic Bridge Trail? Is that one and the same?
Not to my knowledge. Maureen?
No, I think the historic bridge is a feature on the trail,
Yeah.
but it's
I don't know-
not, but it's always been Grand Trunk.
Yeah, I don't ever recall it being called that.
Mhm.
Okay, maybe once we meet with Tammy and yourself, Robert, that we can finalize, make sure that she understands what that is all about for the mapping and such.
Mr. Chairman, at my age, my memory doesn't work too well, but it seems to me there may be one of the signposts that may have reference to the Historic Bridge Trail.
The signpost says rail bridge, as I recall. But I don't know whether it says rail bridge trail. I think it may just say rail bridge. I'll check it tomorrow.
Okay, we'll get back to you on that, Melissa.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that then moves us on to, sorry, Cindy, again, we don't need a motion, right, for this update?
I think we're fine. We haven't added any items. The items or status updates. No, I think we're golden here.
Okay, so then 9.4 items for next meeting on September 27th, 2021.
Just before that, or while people are considering that, could I just ask, I did send an email out several days ago now to everybody regarding the possibility of Pathways for Stewardship and Kinship Family Hike Day by registration, by pre-registration. I don't think I emphasized that in the email. On Saturday, July 24th, tentatively between 10:30 and noon. And it would be led by people in the Pathways program and perhaps someone from ORCA as well. The entry would be from the old school parking lot. And so we'd need to know whether the public washroom in the old school would be available or the old arena could be available. And if not, no worries. Pathways could arrange for a porta potty as long as that's all right with the township. But we just didn't want to lose the whole summer to doing something formal with Pathways on Milbert Valley Trails.
Yeah, I think it's okay with the trails. I mean, anybody can use the trails. I think you need to probably check separately with the township on the status of the washrooms at the old school or the arena. Who would Maureen work with on that event?
So it doesn't have anything to do with Milbert Valley Trails, right? Like,
no, it's just using the trails.
So Pathways just wants to utilize the trails, but you're looking for a facility. So we're as of right now, Maureen, we're not opening our facility for washrooms because as soon as you do, you have to have cleaning and the COVID regulations on that. And that includes cleaning the buildings and things like that. So is it a Saturday or is it an evening or what is it?
It's a Saturday, 10:30 till noon. It's July 24th.
So maybe send me an email and Chris and Melissa or vice versa, or send it to me and I can forward it on. We'll have to have a conversation on that because our staff right now, we're not opening facilities on weekends.
All right. So we could we have a porta potty then, as long as someone staffs it to clean it between uses?
So we'll have to talk about that because if you're talking about the old Millburg School entrance. So we would just have to check because we have to check with the library if they're good with that and what the location would be. And you'd have to pick that up because we have the fair or the farmers market on Sundays.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sure we can work something out. Just send us an email and we'll just have to clarify that stuff.
Maureen, if you want to send it through me, then I can deal with Chris and Yvette I might as well deal with that. I can take care of that.
Yeah, we need enough lead time to get it out in our newsletter and stuff, which is why I sent the email out last week. So I'll send it again with a little addendum to remind you of the specific concerns we just discussed.
So this is on, you said what date? The 24th?
24th.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because we do have some filming issues that we're dealing with too. So yeah, send it to Melissa. Melissa's the key person.
Okay.
And we'll have to look into it at that time.
Okay.
Okay, so moving back to the items for next meeting on September 27th, 2021. Is there anything anybody wants to add? Is Matthew, need to prepare a response to the delegation?
Yeah, I've sent Yvette a message about that. I think we will have a conversation.
I think we lost Matthew, but we will
that, and if
providing a response.
Okay, and that'll be all right. That's fine.
So we'll work with you, Robert, on that.
Perfect.
As chair, yes, of course.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other items anybody else would like to add for the September 27th meeting? You know, it seems a long way away. I think it's, yeah, obviously all the regular agenda items, we'll look at, where we are in terms of COVID and what work remains to be done in terms of what we can accomplish during the smaller groups for work days this over the summer, what our inventory is at in terms of lumber supplies by that time. I'm hoping we'll have everything cut, but who knows what the summer holds. Okay. Was there anything specific that you were looking for here, Cindy, or is it just a placeholder?
This is just a placeholder through you, Chairman Jackson, just so that we try to not do this at the beginning of the agenda. We do it at the end of the agenda. But historically, I will call you, or we can touch base right before the meeting and have a conversation, about what you want to add to the agenda over the summer. And as always, you can call an emergency meeting at the call of a chair if you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. I think that does it. Again, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for another great year. I know it's been a tough one with COVID and not being able to meet in person and get out there and do our typical work days, but I appreciate everybody's continued efforts and continued joining of these calls and your excitement and your desire to help the community through the trail committee. I really appreciate it, and I hope everybody has a good summer, a safe summer, and hopefully in the fall we may be able to start meeting face to face again. Okay, with that, can I have a motion for adjournment?
I say thank you to everybody first.
Thank you, John. Okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Rob.
Thank you.
I'll second it then.
Mr. Fowles, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks very much,
Have a
guys.
great summer, everyone. Take care.
Have a great
Hey,
summer.
guys.
Take care.